Hi, everyone. We're going to get things started as people trickle into the lobby. So we'll just give you a quick second to log in. Got quite a few people with us today, which is great. I want to welcome everybody to our second Conservation Areas workshop webinar. This is the second webinar in our three-part series, and on behalf of our workshop committee, we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. Both Dave and I are really excited to be here again with you all today, although he is running the show in the background, so you won't be able to see Dave, but know that he is here making all the magic happen behind the scenes. So mine will be the voice you hear moderating this webinar. I'm Terri Fisher. I'm our Conservation Areas Administrator, and Dave Orr is Superintendent with Conservation Parks. Both of us have the pleasure of working for Credit Valley Conservation, and we've shared the responsibility of co-chairing this year's Conservation Areas Workshop on behalf of CDC, along with our wonderful planning committee who are in the audience watching. Hi, everybody. So we do want to share a few housekeeping items with you to consider during this webinar. So there is no public chat feature available within this platform, and closed captioning is available should you require it, but please be aware that there is a slight delay between what we are saying and what you're reading as the audio translator plays catch up. So during this webinar, we do have a question and answer feature. Our panel will be answering questions at the end of this webinar. Note that it's not going to be at the end of each speaker's presentation. We're going to be answering all of the questions at the very end of the webinar. So we're going to ask that you address your questions to one specific speaker or to all speakers, as in Terri, which trail were you hiking this weekend? Or all, how did you manage to get through this year without screaming into a pillow? And I did that. I definitely did that. So any unanswered questions that we do not have time for will be answered and sent to you along with our post-webinar survey. So for those of you who joined us last week, I'm going to sound like a bit of a broken record, but we do truly wish that we were able to offer the live in-person workshop experience this year. It's become such a positive mainstay in yearly calendars, but we're working with 2020, and this is the virtual format that we have to offer, so I hope we'll find it engaging and useful. It's definitely been a challenging year, to say the least, but we know that it's important to come together to share and to collaborate like we do so well. And I think CAs and those that support our endeavors really leaned on each other this year to offer consistent messaging and solutions and, you know, the occasional shoulder to cry on. So we're very excited to have our guest presenters here with us today. They're going to walk you through how conservation foundations operate, what state they're in after the challenging year that we have had, fundraising priorities and projects, cost recovery for conservation areas, and how fundraising can support this. Also the role of park staff in the fundraising life cycle, among other things. So today we have Terri LeRoux, who is the Senior Manager of Parks and Executive Director of Credit Valley Conservation Foundation with Credit Valley Conservation. We have Cheryl Taylor, Executive Director of Lake Simcoe Conservation Foundation. And we have Garner Beckett, who is the Director of Conservation Halton Foundation. So again, each speaker will be presenting one after the other, and then we'll be opening up the floor to Q&A at the end of the webinar, not after each presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Terri LeRoux. Take it away, Terri.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Terri mentioned, I have a dual role with CVC. I'm the executive director of the foundation, so the fundraising arm, but I'm also the senior manager of parks. So I think that lends definitely a unique perspective and experience, because I can speak today from both sides of the coin. And echoing Terri, but I think it's really important. I just wanted to thank the entire CA workshop committee for transforming the event to the virtual format to ensure that the knowledge sharing and the social element and just the gathering can continue, because it's so important for for park staff, especially this year. I know we all need to lean on each other and learn and grow together. So with that, let's get started. Dave, if you could cue up my presentation.
Okay, presentation's live, Terry, just go full screen.
It is live, okay. Excellent. So the, sorry guys for the momentary pause. I'm having difficulty seeing the actual live presentation screen.
Can you try unshare? Oh, there you go.
I think I've got it.
It's working.
It's good. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. All right. Slight little bumble there at the beginning, but that's okay. So the place I'm speaking from today is more than just theory and best practices. It's lived experience. And I thought this was important to share with the parks crew that's out there. My own parks career started back in the 90s. I worked for M&R for 5 years as a warden and fisheries officer at Presqu'île and Algonquin. The classic brown and beige uniforms you can see in the picture and the unsigned Canoe Lake office definitely gives the time and my age away, but that's okay. During that time, particularly while in Algonquin, I created in-park fundraisers and rallied my colleagues to do the same. It wasn't in my job description, but I made fundraising a part of my job, not because anyone asked me to. I didn't have to do it, I just wanted to do it. I knew that those small actions of organizing in-park fundraisers, like head shaving events, could add value to the places that I was really passionate about. And I'd be lying if I didn't admit that I derived motivation and a whole lot of joy from the opportunity to shave my park superintendent's head. But doing good and having fun along the way are very highly compatible goals. So during my part of our trifecta presentation on fundraising in parks, I'm going to provide you with an overview of Conservation Authority foundations, celebrate some of the projects that have been achieved through fundraising proceeds, and wax poetic a little bit on the virtues of citizen engagement. Conservation foundations across Ontario have been in place almost as long as CAs themselves and exist for 3 main reasons. One is to advance the protection and stewardship of our natural lands. 2 is to connect our communities with nature and the local environment. And 3 is to inspire individuals and groups to affect meaningful change through giving. The relationship between CA foundations and their respective conservation authorities mirror that of a hospital and a hospital foundation. CA foundations are separate legal entities and organizations unto themselves. We have a distinct board of directors and a set of governance documents. And very often, CA foundations will have a shared or reciprocal staff arrangement with their partner conservation authority. And typically, the authority's general manager or CAO is appointed as the secretary treasurer of the foundation. This is important because it ensures open communication between the 2 organizations, reduces the likelihood of any conflicts of interest, and ensures that the foundation is always acting in the spirit of the authority and is aligning their fundraising efforts and activities to support the highest priorities as identified by the Conservation Authority. CAs and CA foundations are known to be mutually benefiting and mutually contributing. Simply put, they add value to each other. CA foundations can be self-sustaining, meaning that foundation staff salaries, fundraising costs, administrative costs are incurred by the foundation itself. But alternatively, the authority can also invest in offsetting a portion of the staffing and admin costs of the foundation. And they do this in recognition that the funds and the social capital raised by having an arm's length foundation greatly exceed that investment. Across the CA foundations in Ontario, the relationship and operating model with their partners CA varies wildly. I can honestly say that no 2 are the same and that we all function quite differently. CA foundations offer really significant worth and advantage to CAs. Number 1, they offer specialized fundraising expertise. They're the friendly, non-regulatory, non-enforcement, non-political side of the equation, which helps to build public trust and cultivate advocates for our cause. And CA foundations can provide undesignated revenue to a CA that the CA can then invest in projects that wouldn't otherwise be funded or that would have a funding shortfall. And key to the value proposition of CA foundations is that, you know, they can raise funds for non-core projects and programs. They help get things done that would otherwise be impossible or take an incredibly long time to achieve. And truly, the sky is the limit with CA foundations in attracting a diverse set of investors and donors. To give you an idea of what the landscape of conservation foundations looks like across the province, on an annual basis, Conservation Ontario conducts a statistical survey of both authorities and the CA foundations. And these annual results are incredibly helpful for tracking changes, trends, and pressures across and over the years. So right now in Ontario, there are 23 Conservation Authority foundations. And in 2018, which is the latest results of the survey that are available, that represented a combined gross revenue of $8.8 million and a total contribution then to CAs of $4.6 million. And I think it's really important for me to point out here that that $4.2 million gap between the money raised and the amount contributed does not mean that those funds were expended on fundraising expenses or admin, but instead it's that the majority of them were held in trust by the foundation in support of CA projects and programs that would be completed in future years. The really critical thing I want to share with you today is that 35 of the 36 conservation authorities in Ontario have charitable registration status. And that's critical for you as park staff, because it means that in absence of having your own partner CA foundation, there are mechanisms in place for staff to undertake fundraising activities. People are the driving force of CAs. They're also the driving force of CA foundations. And I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my people, my fellow conservation fundraisers, because they're a really hardworking bunch. Only 2% of all charitable giving in Canada supports environmental causes. It's really hard money to come by, especially this year, where due to the pandemic, that figure has dropped to 1%. So the numbers you see in front of you across those 23 CAs, there's 19.5 full-time staff, that we're working to raise that 8.8 million. It takes a really special commitment and tenacity to commit your life and full-time career to environmental fundraising. But that is exactly why we need park staff to help us. To give you an idea of the top fundraising strategies that Conservation Ontario identified in the survey, those 23 CA foundations rely, in numerical order and order of priority on individual donations, special events, and grants. And an individual's first experience with the CA Foundation usually begins at a park or a conservation area, and many, if not most, of our fundraising special events are held at our parks and areas. So the link between the most successful strategies and our park system is strong and undeniable. On the beneficiary side, so where the funds are going, the top 3 beneficiary programs are environmental education, capital projects, and then tree planting and water protection came in tied for 3rd place. And again, these top funded issues are inextricably linked to our parks and lands. Parks are made better by generosity. Donors help move our vision to reality, and they help transform our spaces. And our collective donors represent a constituency of caregivers for our parks and our watersheds. So I'm really happy to share with you right now a handful of the projects that Credit Valley, Conservation Halton, and Lake Simcoe made possible through the support of donors. So Lake Simcoe donors brought to life the Discovery Play Garden for kids at Scanlon Creek Conservation Area, the Bark Park, which is an off-leash dog park also at Scanlon, the Beaver River Wetland Trail Project, and the Scanlon Creek Restoration Project, which was a dam bypass and restoration project. Some of the things that Conservation Halton donors have helped is to renovate the Longhouse Village at Crawford Lake Conservation Area and secure the land surrounding Crawford Lake, the construction of the Mountsburg Raptor Center, and they helped advance the Mountsburg Strike Recovery Program and facility. At CVC, our donors have helped complete the Lakeside Vicky Barron Trail, an on-water amphitheater, and a natural playground at Island Lake Conservation Area. They've helped construct a sugar shack and an amphitheater at Terracotta, and replace bridges and boardwalks at Rattray Marsh Conservation Area. Our donors have also helped us secure lands to create Charles Sorial Conservation Area. All of these projects are incredibly meaningful for our parks and for our visitors. And, you know, every time a visitor comes to one of our parks, their experience is enhanced because of the generosity of others. So let's talk a little bit about our greatest allies, which is people. The citizens that step forward and gift us their time are invaluable to our cause. One of the greatest gifts anyone can give in their lifetime is their time. Money is replaceable, time is not. And where and how we choose to spend our time defines our lives. So if someone is choosing to spend their time for the benefit of your park, cherish that gift and engage them. And one of the most popular ways we engage systems across our park system is through the formation of friends groups. Park staff are confronted on a daily basis with the question, how can we do more with less? And operating under this auspice is the new normal. But an optimally functioning friends group can counteract public budgeting trends and pressures by invoking the power of philanthropy and volunteerism to replace those unfunded budgetary items. The list of needs that friends groups can help to address is practically endless. Many groups are equipped to support invasive plant removal, maintaining pollinator gardens, installing bird and bat houses, maintaining and even building trails, building political and financial support for the park, and promoting our parks at public events. Even some friend groups are the mechanism in which the CA is able to apply for grants to support park enhancements. But perhaps, you know, the most important is the less tangible ways that friends groups help a park succeed. They bring forth a voice, the voice of the community that's not bound by the municipal process. And they're able to push forward issues that may not be possible from within the agency. Friends group, they form because people care, and they're not without their challenges. Within that care that they bring, there exists a passion that can either be stoked toward benefit or burden. And all friends groups at some point or another are at odds with their conservation authority or park staff. They may try to influence or direct management decisions. They may have unrealistic expectations of what they can do or should be doing and how park staff should help them do it. They may have ulterior motives and be looking to use their membership on a friends group as an inside track or for information or, you know, connection with someone within the organization. But ultimately, you know, concern with the condition of a park or the authority's plans for a park are the primary reasons that friends groups are formed. However, the underlying motivations of individuals who assemble to support our parks are almost always admirable, and the challenges can absolutely be overcome. And just simply being aware of the challenges is half the battle. CVC has had many friends groups over the years associated with our properties like Rattray Marsh, Terracotta, and Island Lake. And the Friends of Island Lake is our case study in success. They formed in 2005 to support the development of the trail system around the lake, and held strongly to the vision of a 10-kilometer trail system at Island Lake. And one of the main drivers of their success is the founder and current chair, Bob Shirley. Bob is at the table for all the right reasons and helps CBC weed out members that contribute to the three challenges I spoke of: management interference, ulterior motives, incongruent expectations. He's not afraid to confront those head on and transition the disruptors out of the group. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have a leader like Bob, whose passion and authenticity keeps things on the right track. And of utmost importance, Bob deeply values and appreciates and is constantly expressing his appreciation and love for the park staff. And so many of them have formed very true friendships with him. Conversely, if you have the wrong or a mismatched person at the head of the table, it can be very divisive, and it can alienate volunteers and it can alienate staff. So getting it right is key. You have to be choosy, you have to be selective, and you cannot do warm body recruitment. Under Bob's leadership, the Friends of Island Lake have raised more than $3 million in donations. They completed that 10 kilometers of fully accessible trail. They've contributed more than 15,000 volunteer hours. And for more than 10 years, they've been hosting an annual bass fishing derby that's attracted hundreds of out-of-town visitors to our parks and raised more than $250,000. The Friends of Island Lake have also helped us, CBC, build meaningful relationships with local residents, politicians, decision makers, and other volunteer organizations like local service clubs. They've accelerated what would have taken us much longer to do on our own. But the bottom line, and I really hope everyone hears this, is because it will be true for all of you and all of your park systems, is that the Friends and Bob would not be who they are or would not have been able to accomplish what they have without the park staff. Park staff are unquestionably the glue that holds it together. They are the cheerleaders for the Friends, and they are more often than not the sweat equity that brings Friends initiatives to life. It takes a park manager, a park superintendent, and a team of dedicated park staff that will recognize the value of investing in the Friends relationship and acknowledging that, like any relationship, it's not all sunshine and roses. It takes work and it takes commitment. If you're looking to build or enhance your own Friends groups, I encourage you to spend time reflecting on how you can best align with the volunteers' motivations. Focus more on what they need than what you need, and it's a recipe for success. And park staff are often the first entry point for a new volunteer, and you can easily help grow this base if you reflect on and understand their motivations. Give them what they need, match their motivation to the role, and you've likely created a lifetime supporter and prospective donor. And park staff are also the best people to impress upon volunteers the importance of the park itself and the visions that you want to realize. You're the best people to recognize the contributions and to show gratitude for the accomplishments of volunteers. It means so much more, the thank you means so much more coming from a park staff member than it does coming from a desktop at head office. And I'll wrap up with my poetic waxings on Parks life and why how you show up every day and contribute is so important. This industry is a lifestyle. Parks people are incredibly passionate about what they do. Park staff understand the role that the parks play in the bigger picture and the impact that our parks and CAs have on the quality of life of Ontarians. It's an understatement to say that our parks in 2020 are busting at the seams. People are rediscovering their birthright to these lands and spaces. In the middle of a pandemic, there is a sense of normalcy and calmness at our parks and CAs. It's a return for many to what they grew up doing and lost somewhere along the way. This reconnection to the land offers within it tremendous opportunity to cultivate relationships and help our visitors develop a sense of place and an ethic of care. I know for many park staff, the visitation peaks this year have been really tough, like really, really tough, and have led to a lot of headaches and long, hard days. But hopefully what you're also seeing and realizing is that when times are tough, people turn to the places that you care for. They're turning to parks to protect and to heal their mental, physical, and spiritual health. And you get to be a part of that. People are seeking the peace of mind that the places and visitor experiences that you've created and care for bring to them. And you may never understand the true impact you have on people, but I urge you to really look around when you're in the field. Look for the smile on a child's face, or the selfie capture that is memorializing a moment in someone's life, or the solo hiker that is out there chasing solitude. That is all a part of your contribution to the world. And you can choose to deepen and elevate that contribution simply by acknowledging that every park visitor is a prospective friend and a prospective donor, and act accordingly. Do your little bit of good where you are and have a whole lot of fun along the way, because it's those little bits of good put together that are going to transform the world and transform our parks. So, thank you.
I was muted. Thanks, Terri. That was really, really helpful. Really helpful window into how foundations operate. You're truly dynamic entities that, there are a lot of moving parts, so it's really nice to understand the full scope of how these work. So thank you so much for that candid reflection on foundations. Next we have Cheryl. Cheryl Taylor is going to be joining us, so I will pass her the mic next.
Hi there, can everyone hear me? Yes, yep. I hope so. Okay, I'm going to try to share, and we'll see if it works out. Can everybody see that? Okay.
Perfect.
Say yes. Say yes, Tori.
Everything's working, Cheryl. It's
okay,
perfect.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Tori, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, or hello from Newmarket. As Tori said, I'm Cheryl Taylor. I'm Executive Director of Lake Simcoe Conservation Foundation. And just to give you a brief overview of LSCF, we've been supporting our Conservation Authority since 1973, so quite a while, probably longer than most of you have been alive. And like my counterparts, and thanks to our donors, we do raise funds for initiatives like outdoor education, stewardship, restoration and protection projects, and science and research. And a few years ago, we even bought a new research vessel for Lake Simcoe called the Hexagenia, which is Latin for shadfly. And of course, we're very proud to help support all of our parks. So it's all about COVID these days, isn't it? I'm sure you're going to get sick of hearing it. This pandemic has reached every aspect of our lives. It's made parks fundraising and recovery both challenging as well as opportunistic. So I'll be covering a few topics for you this afternoon. Our conservation foundations have some top priorities at our parks, and I'll give you a high-level overview of what Credit, Halton, and Lake Simcoe foundations are working on. We're always reflecting on trends in our charitable sector, so I'll take you through a review of what's happening during this challenging year. And next, we know that our parks are getting a lot more use this year. I think Terri really reflected on that, how we're bursting at the seams. So what does that mean for fundraising? And finally, how can we position parks as places of respite for mental and physical health and well-being? All our foundations are working very hard each year to raise funds for priority authority programs and projects. And these campaigns that support these projects could run over many years. So CBC Foundation has 3 major projects that they're working on right now. The Credit Valley Trail project will run through numerous parks and be a 100-kilometer pathway through the Credit River Valley. So their campaign goal is $10 million. Wow, that's a lot, Terri. The Bell Fountain Conservation Area Public Realm project includes a visitor center, trails, gatehouse, washrooms, parking, and much more. So the campaign goal there is just $8 million. Still another big one. And I love this one. The Island Lake Covered Bridge at the Island Lake Conservation Area is in need of $75,000. So Conservation Halton Foundation is also working a lot of great priorities and key projects. So Kelso Quarry Park, an award-winning rehabilitated quarry near Milton, will be opening very soon. Conservation Halton Foundation is also supporting the visitor center upgrades to Kelso Glen Eden. So lots of great sporting activities there. And lastly, they're also working on raising funds for the Interpretive Center and Boardwalk at Crawford Lake Conservation Area near Milton. Lake Simcoe Conservation Foundation supports our parks through both our annual campaign and our capital campaign. Though we recently supported accessibility and safety upgrades at Thornton Vales Park in King, our biggest park project is the 2018 launch of the Connect campaign to build a new nature center at Scanlon Creek. So that's it before. The center has been the anchor of outdoor education for generations of kids. The current nature center is made up of 3 used and repurposed and donated portables that are really straight out of the 80s. It has 2 classrooms that serve up to 60 kids, and it really doesn't meet today's AODA or construction standards, and it really does not support the innovative outdoor programming that it's based here. If not rebuilt, the outdoor education programming at Scanlon will end. I think I remember those chairs from my class in the 80s. The new nature center, so this is the inspired design. It will more than triple in size and have capacity for about 250 guests. It will be built using green, sustainable design, and I have 3 multi-use flexible rooms that will attract about 15,000 people annually. We hope if all goes well, we'll have it built by 2022, and we're halfway there. There are so many other so many other authority programs and projects we support, but those are just some of the top ones, and we look forward to working with our CAs to see them all completed. So the state of the charitable sector. I think we've all been experiencing a lot of challenges this year because of the pandemic, from juggling our kids' remote learning and working from home to worrying about the health of our families and especially our parents and our grandparents. Many people have lost their jobs, they've been laid off, or they're on reduced hours. In any event, many are being far more cautious about spending their money, and that translates into donating dollars. The reality is, there are far fewer charitable dollars out there. Charities in unprecedented numbers are experiencing double-digit decreases in revenue, and many have had to lay off their employees for the first time and still endeavor to meet their missions. Because of the economic and health implications of COVID, many charities are also seeing challenges with working with their volunteers, who are essential to our success. Underscoring all of this is the fact that the demand for services amongst charities is skyrocketing. Think food banks and mental health and addiction nonprofits. The difference between 2008 and the 2009 economic downturn and what we are experiencing now is that this is not just about the economy, is it? It's also about a global life and death epidemic, and it's staying with us a lot longer than we all expected. So it's putting charities under significant pressure just to keep the lights on. The charitable sector depends on the goodwill of its donors to raise money, and we're always reaching out to the community to connect our vision and hope it aligns with their values. We do this through fundraising programs that by their nature have become virtually impossible to execute during these COVID times. I'm sure you've all attended some amazing live events that were organized by your conservation foundations, and I know they've probably all been canceled in their traditional formats this year. Face-to-face fundraising, especially with our major gift donors, is of course not really happening. So which charities are the hardest hit? Well, mostly it's those that are in the non-healthcare related sectors, so the arts, recreation, and of course the environment. And I think Terri mentioned that the environment is such a small percentage of giving anyway, so this is having an amplified effect, right? It makes perfect sense that people are choosing to give to our hospitals right now, but the downstream effect to other charities is also do incredible work is just staggering. Another interesting fact is that the charitable sector is predominantly employed by women, about 70%. Therefore, job loss in this sector is hitting women a lot harder. When lockdown happened in March, we all moved to our home offices, and I don't think any of us thought that this was going to last through the summer. But here we are, now putting our 2021 budgets and plans together, with this pandemic still top of mind. And we're going to be planning to recover well into 2021. So how is the charitable sector coping? Well, as with any challenge, we need to be innovative so our voice is still heard. Tori and Dave have done an excellent job today of moving these workshops virtually, don't you think? The charitable sector is having to pivot too, taking events and meetings with donors and prospects and boards of directors, all virtual. It's been a crash course in Zoom, WebEx, and MS Teams. Many charities are adapting by working as locally as possible to ensure they're meeting the changing needs of their communities. And we're all collaborating a lot more. Fellow executive directors Terri, Garner, and I have never talked more than we have in the last 6 months as we try to navigate this difficult course. And there's nothing like a pandemic to bring people closer together. And I hope that collaboration continues into the future. Our communities and our watersheds are going to need vibrant charities of all types so that quality of life is growing and sustainable. At LSCF, COVID has meant canceling our biggest annual fundraiser, the Conservation Dinner, for the first time in its 32-year history. And I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, when we should book it for next year. But I consider us very lucky. Most sponsorships were already secured and they chose to convert to a donation. Major gift donations are way down, but I'm still hoping for a strong end-of-year push. And our capital campaign to build a new nature center at Scanlon has had its distinct challenges as well. So, park visitation increases. This slide, of course, is not going to be a secret to any of you. This year with social distancing, with lockdown, with quarantine, the need to be outside and experience nature has skyrocketed, and our authorities have welcomed more people to our parks than ever before. Lake Simcoe saw about a 3-fold increase, Halton a 35% increase in park visits, and Credit Parks overall had a 54% increase, with, Terri tells me, some individual parks at 124% of an increase. That's just incredible. People are enjoying their time outside, and we don't expect them to stay home after the pandemic is over. Our conservation areas and parks will continue to see much more use. So with this increased use, the condition of many park facilities and trails will of course be impacted. Therefore, many authorities are also experiencing those operational pressures that come along with it, having no additional staff to perform the increased maintenance, and many have no additional revenue to support it. This is just a shout out to Lauren and Dan from Lake Simcoe for sending this photo over to me. This is really a photo that really exemplifies what we're seeing in our parks. So this is just outside Thornton Bales Park in King. It has 8 parking spots, which have normally been able to handle the flow of the public coming in and out. But in the last 3 months, there's been 12,000 visitors to this park alone. And you can just see the long lineup of cars that are parked along this very busy country road that is actually making passage very unsafe for people. So this is just a great visual of what's going on in our parks. So what does all this mean to fundraising? Of course, if you're like that little goldfish eyeing that larger fish bowl, you want to flap those fins harder and take a giant leap. You see opportunity. Thanks to COVID, more people are getting outside to enjoy our parks, And that, my friends, is a fabulous opportunity to work together to make more money to support parks and the activities offered within them. It is a balance though, as I said, because increased visitation means the price tag goes up to maintain park infrastructure. And I think Garnet will be talking about cost recovery and fundraising very soon. Our role as fundraisers is to make that personal connection to park visitors as potential donors. Once they see the value of nature in their own lives, there's a greater chance of giving to help improve it. And what COVID has done is to help people be more aware of the benefits of being outside. They are now actively seeking us out, and the word is spreading about our parks. Canada also has a growing immigrant mosaic, especially in the GTA, and many new Canadians are spending time with their families enjoying our parks. It really is a necessity now to establish relationships with all cultures as part of our park fundraising strategy. Our multicultural communities share a strong willingness to embrace community service. They are driven to give and volunteer out of a strong sense of duty. So that's really something to focus on as well. So we're now preaching to the choir, right? The value proposition is there. Our watershed communities are visiting us and they want safe, green spaces to enjoy. So let's provide them with opportunities or touch points to support your work in the park, right on the trails. Simply making the public aware that the support is needed and why it's needed is a good place to start. I know some CAs have put signage up at parks that use texting technology to donate, and these are all great ideas to investigate. If there's a cost to park at a park, maybe there could be a voluntary donation at the same time. Is there a way to illustrate where park donations go to at the park so they can feel that sense of perhaps pride and belonging? So these are all things to think about. Parks have definitely emerged as vital to our recovery from COVID. Everyone on this call understands that there is a direct link between our own health and the health of nature. So let's face it, we're all on our screens far too long all day, especially since work from home policies were implemented. Spending time in our parks gives our overstimulated minds that much needed break. It can encourage imagination and creativity, and of course, improve our fitness levels. It makes our work performance and our job satisfaction even better. Parks are an essential service. Enjoying the great outdoors is not only good for your body and mind, being healthier naturally can help keep people out of the hospital, which may even reduce healthcare costs. It truly is an investment in your well-being. Parks are safe places that respect social distancing rules, and studies have shown that the benefits of time spent outdoors over a lifetime is another indicator of good health, just like family history or age. So let's help our watershed communities reconnect with nature within our parks. Let's understand how this pandemic has impacted the work of our foundations and how important supporting this work will be in the coming years. With the provincial and federal budgets focused on COVID recovery, private donations and working with your conservation foundation is now more important than ever. And that's it for me. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much, Cheryl. It's clearly a tough landscape right now for environmental fundraising, but I think your message of innovation and opportunity is a really resilient and positive response to this pandemic. So thank you very much for sharing. Up next, we do have Garner Beckett from Conservation Halton, and I will give the mic to Garner.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay, and hopefully you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. Good, I got a thumbs up. So it's great to be here today. I want to thank Terri and Cheryl. I'm in very good company with these ladies, and I am definitely the new guy around the table here. I've just been with Conservation Halton for a couple of years now. So very happy to to be here sharing with you a little bit about some more fundraising. So I'm going to dive right into my slides. I've used this slide a number of times, myths and common fears. I just think it's great to address this with folks that may be a little nervous around what fundraising means and what it means to you, because there's a lot of misconceptions around what it means. People conjure these ideas of, a car salesman type, slimy, guy knocking on doors, begging for money. And we'd like to dispel that, because that definitely isn't the kind of fundraising that we're doing. We're not duping people into making donations. That is definitely not what we're about. So I just want to address that. Some of these questions we hear, and I addressed this with our board of directors as well and our volunteers. So I don't want to knock on doors or make cold calls. I'm going to share with you a bunch of different ways that you can become involved in the fundraising cycle, different aspects of that aren't knocking on doors and that type of fundraising that may make people feel a little uncomfortable. I don't know, wealthy people, that doesn't matter. Obviously, a donor is a donor, and we start with people that are interested, people that are showing an interest. It feels like begging. There is nothing to be bashful about here. Our causes, as you know, are very worthwhile, and people want to support those. And I'm not an expert in the environment. We have a building full of people that we can connect to that are subject matter experts. So I am definitely not an expert in the environment. But the point is, I can talk passionately, and when I get out of my depth, I connect them right through to an expert to take them a little deeper, and that is fine. So I have a little bit of theory, because it's nice to take a little look under the hood of fundraising, just to see the type of lens that we apply to our fundraising and how you as staff in various departments can plug into that. So when we talk about fundraising, we're talking about this cycle here, and this doesn't just apply to fundraising, it applies to any kind of business development. It applies to customer relationships as well. So we can think about this cycle: identifying new donors, cultivating those donors, soliciting, because if we don't ask, we're not going to get anything, and then stewarding those donors and maintaining those relationships so that we can renew and we can grow those donations. So these are all important aspects that we look at when we're planning any kind of event or any kind of initiative, that it's at least checking one or more of these boxes. And I want to take a minute just to dive into these a little bit to make it a little bit more tangible for you as staff in various departments. So when it comes to identifying donors, this is quite easy. It's just being a connector. So keeping foundation projects top of mind. Here, good customer service matters, because everyone is a potential donor. And considering all points of interaction with the general public, because those are really our points of entry for those donors. And then from that point, it's being an ambassador. It's sharing a passion for the work, talking about the projects, and telling the story. So you guys are experts, not in every area of our business, but you definitely are the best people in your area to share that story and to nurture interest. And especially for those PARCS staff that are on the front lines, I'm sure your foundation has prioritized some park projects. I mean, all of the foundations are driving park projects. Some projects that you can talk about, and if there is interest, if you see that interest from a park visitor, you can nurture that, and it's very, very easy to do. And that's the only type of fundraising that I have ever done in my career as a fundraiser. It's not knocking on cold doors. It's just sharing a passion for projects that I care about. And that feels good. So that comes down to being informed, being aware of, and sharing the active campaigns and the active priority projects that your authority and your foundation are driving. Understanding and sharing the funding needs, and it's good to keep in mind that people do want to help. So again, there's no need to be bashful around these projects. They are very important projects and people want to support them. From that point, stewarding those relationships, this is a matter of just showing appreciation, looking for opportunities to connect with and thank donors, considering all points of interaction to show gratitude, park interaction events, social media. And people want to feel a part of something, not like a transaction. So that's an important part of this relationship cycle, is that we're not treating people like transactions. If we do that, they will leave. Nobody, like any relationship in your life, you can't treat it as a transaction. It takes a little bit of work. We have to keep in touch with our loved ones and keep connected if we want to maintain those relationships. And the same goes for any customer relationship, any donor relationship. We want to deepen those relationships, not just treat them as transactions and money. And it is also important to keep in mind that renewing those donors is our most efficient tool in fundraising. Retaining donors and renewing is our cheapest fundraising tool. It's expensive to acquire new donors. It's difficult to acquire new donors. But retaining donors, it's a matter of telling stories and keeping in touch with donors and keeping connected and thanking them. Also good to reinforce that we're talking about long-term issues. So we need support, not just now, but in the future as well. These are long-term problems, long-term challenges, and sustainability is very important. So we need multi-year, long-term support. And that all just helps build our network of advocates and donors, and every little bit helps there, right? Like if staff on the ground are all doing a small part in that cycle, we will raise more money. We will grow our network. We can't just rely on, the handful of fundraisers we have in the organization to do everything. We can do so much more if we're all pitching in. So one thing I've seen since being with the organization as well is that staff are great innovators. So this may make my colleagues just a little bit nervous because there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of great projects that need funding, and there isn't enough room in foundations to fund everything that needs funding. But I can tell you that the greatest passion and the best ideas I'm seeing are coming from those doing the work on the ground, those who have a connection with customers. The greatest areas of need, you have that connection, and you have a passion for the projects, and you want to see them successful. You want to see them flourish. So I have a couple examples of good staff innovation. My slides have stopped advancing. Here we go. So our Mountsburg Food Fund. So this was a very challenging year for fundraising. We typically do a spring and fall, just small online donor campaign. And it typically raises about $5,000, maybe up to 10 if we really promote it on social media. And we leave a little bit of flexibility with those campaigns to make sure that we're tapping into something that is timely. And in this year, having that flexibility was a very good thing because I was approached by our park and education staff with a problem in April, May, when we were in a very challenging time and we were struggling to try to reopen parks this year, and we were at Mountsburg trying to keep our animals fed and cared for, because those costs were still there, even though our park revenue wasn't. So the staff approached me and said, can we do a campaign for the animals? We think people will connect with that. So it was really our parks team and education staff team, along with Marcom, that came up with this concept. And I just helped shape it a little bit, and it happened to end up being our Mouseburg Animal Food Fund, the most effective online campaign that we have ever done. In a very short period, a couple weeks, we raised about $50,000, 800 new donors to the organization. People really stepped up. But this was generated by our own staff team. So such a great example of the staff team identifying need and knowing what people want. They knew that our animals had such an incredible following at Mouseburg there. We've never done any kind of fundraising for our farm animals at Mouseburg. And it happened to this year really, really resonate. So that's a great success story, and a story of staff innovation. Just to talk a little bit about cost recovery, parks and recreation. So parks philanthropy, both a tradition and critical element of the success of today's park system. Some parks exist only because motivated citizens contributed time, talent, and funds to create them. So our Crawford Lake conservation area is a great example of that. A gift of land helped to enlarge that park, and gifts of land and easements have enlarged many parks across Ontario in the Conservation Authority system. Donations, as you know, used to improve and enhance parks programs. Donations aren't typically used to meet recurring operational requirements, but park enhancements made possible by donations increase the value proposition of the park, drive admissions and user fees, and effectively contribute to the park's financial sustainability. So one example of that from Conservation in Halton, about a year or so ago, we created our Help Protect Our Forests campaign. So there was a need, and this again was identified from our parks team as a need, specifically around EAB trees and the removal of logs and the replacement of those trees. So that we found as a concept that people could get behind, as from a cause perspective. So it was created for park maintenance, specifically the removal of the trees, and the funding is used. The funding that we raise through this program is used for tree plantings and initiatives at the parks as well. The messaging is quite simple: donate $10 to plant a tree, but we build in enough flexibility that we can use those funds for related things that we're already doing at the parks anyways, things that are already costing us a good amount of money to take care of at the parks. And that's been quite effective for us as well. We have some nice touch points for this with our visitors. We can integrate it into the trails, into the trailhead. We can recognize donors at the trailhead as well. So that's just another quick example from our perspective. Now, staff as ambassadors. So all staff can help. And as I mentioned, it starts with just being informed, understanding what your foundation's priorities are, and really what the authority's priorities are, what those top projects are. Coming to some kind of consensus around those obviously is very important as a staff team. And then talking passionately about those projects, particularly where there is need. As I mentioned, identifying, cultivating, stewarding donors. You can play an important role in any of those aspects of relationship fundraising. And nurturing interest and making connections, sharing your ideas and passion, and developing relationships with regular visitors and members. You already have those relationships, so it's just deepening those relationships, and that's just being a great ambassador and fundraiser. And it doesn't even feel like fundraising. It doesn't need to feel like you're knocking on a stranger's door, because you know these people. And then just a good reminder, why do people give? People give because of positive experiences, and they are having loads of those experiences at your parks. People give to people. That's why those relationships really matter, and we want to retain those relationships and build more relationships. People give when they feel inspired. So that passion that you have is contagious and it builds trust. So please share it with people that are visiting your parks. And people give because it feels good. People want to help, and you have causes that are worth supporting. So that is the end of my piece. I may have even went a little faster than I expected.
No, that was perfect, Garner.
Okay.
Thank you so much, very much. I think to your point that, especially for me, that customer service matters, and that everyone is a potential donor, that really hits home. Parks and foundation staff, CA staff have such passion, and it's great to know that it's useful and it's beneficial. And furthermore, to all three of your collective belief in staff innovation and participation, you can just see your desire to support these environmental and park initiatives is just so thoughtful and so obvious, and we're really grateful to have you speak today. So this does conclude our presentation portion of the webinar. Thanks warmly again to our presenters for being here with us today. So now we will jump to our Q&A portion. So I'm just going to have a quick look to see which questions have come up. So we've got a couple here. The first one is addressed to all of our presenters. And the question is there a fundraising initiative at your CA or one that you are familiar with that allows visitors to donate while on site, for example, at a trailhead or along the trail? There's someone that would like to take a stab at this one. Terri? Oh, sorry. Do you want to start with Terri?
Sure. Sorry, that was all of us waiting, being so, that's the thing with fundraisers, we're very polite, right? We're listeners. Yeah, so I think there's a few things that we do in our parks. There are the add-on donation option at when you pay a gate admission or make a purchase in one of our stores. But I think that, one of the ones that's been really successful for us are trail donation days. And those are ones that are manned by volunteers. So the volunteers are set up with a display, some type of interactive get to know the park, very warm feeling, comfortable to approach. So it's, as Garner said, fundraising that doesn't feel like fundraising. And trail users and park visitors are then enabled and encouraged to make a donation that day directly to a volunteer.
Okay, thanks, Terri. Garner, would you like to take a crack at that as well?
Yeah, sure. So we have recently added a point of contact and potential donation into our parks through our registration system. So that's been quite successful, and that we can turn on or turn off. And it's really that when people are registering through our park registration system, they can do that add-on donation. And it's been quite effective. So we can tailor that messaging throughout the year to target specific campaigns, or to focus on education, or to focus on planting trees. But that's been a good one for us. And we can do the same at a number of gift shops that we have in the parks as well. So we can do a point of sale, little pitch, the same type of thing that you'd get at a grocery store. Add $2, $5, on your gift purchase as well. And that's quite effective for us too. So those are the two things that come to mind for me, but I would love to have more.
Thanks, Garner. Cheryl, would you like to add to that?
Well, I think I'm the outlier here. We don't really have anything. So we only have really a couple of parks that are really open to the public of any degree, and there's no paid parking right now, so there's not a lot of revenue coming in. So we're really on the uptake now, and learning what all the best practices are, and really trying to see where the best return on investment is to have that happen. So we're starting from square one.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. All right, we do have one more question. Oh, maybe we have a couple more coming in. Well, let's start with this one is addressed to all again. What are your best fundraisers that can be replicated in other areas? Someone that wants to take a stab at that one?
Best fundraisers in parks?
I suppose. I'm guessing this means the best fundraisers that can be replicated in other conservation areas. Maybe small CAs, large CAs.
I think for us, the best fundraisers are the ones that are very tailored to our audience. So the ones that really speak directly to a need that resonates with that donor. So if we did a broad-based generic donate to us for all these good reasons, it would not be effective. But on our trails, if we do a request for trail support, our Mountsburg Food Fund, we targeted people that were visiting Mountsburg and people that we know love the animals. So for us, it's a very custom approach, and that has been the most successful.
Yeah, I think, Terri, your trail, having those fundraising days on the trails, that's really targeted to those. Anytime you target to people that are actually using the facilities will be successful, and you can take that elsewhere. We did, when we had our Friends of Scanlon Creek, we had a bird banding night or a session of bird banding. We had a bird bander that used to band saw-whet owls. And it seems that the more money we charged for it, the quicker it would sell out. So it was a huge success.
Yeah, I would add too that one of the best fundraisers, non-fundraisers that we've done would be the Bass Derbies that I mentioned. And I say non-fundraisers from the sense that there's a couple points of revenue for it. There's the sponsorship ask and the relationships that are happening and being cultivated with the local neighborhood businesses. So a very mutually beneficial relationship. And then there's the revenue from the actual anglers and registrations. So that philanthropic side of it is actually absent from that type of fundraiser. So it's a different monster to run, but it actually it works well because it deepens our relationships with our neighborhood and the business partners. It brings new users into the park. It brings anglers to the park that are not from the area. So there's some economic spin-off benefit there for the local community as well and return visitors. So I would say those type of events, and that's right in line with what Garner said. Like that's a very strategic, specialized, customized to the audience versus the blanket approach. It doesn't work. It doesn't hit home with anybody.
It's not sustainable, right? It won't keep giving. For sure.
Thank you much for these answers. So moving along, we do have another question here addressed to all. What strategies and/or community indicators help inform fundraising activities for foundation-led campaigns?
What? Can you say it again?
Oh, yep,
Sorry?
I can repeat it. What strategies and/or community indicators help inform fundraising activities for foundation-led campaigns?
I think I touched on that earlier. It's really being in touch with who your donor is, right? It's that segmentation of the donor. Are there lots of new Canadians moving into your conservation areas? Are they using your facilities? That can really inform how you choose to fundraise and the methods with you do it, right?
Mm-hmm. True. Would anyone else like to speak to this question?
So one of the obvious indicators that we use is really geography. So if we are doing an initiative at Kelso, and if we're looking for sponsors, our obvious go-to is Milton on the business side, on the sponsorship side. So geography is a very obvious one for us, but then also visitation. So our parks, and this may not be consistent across all CAs, but our parks have very unique personalities as well, and attract certain visitors for their various elements. So Kelso Glen Eden is a very sporty audience: mountain biking, kayaking, skiing. Mountsburg is very bird focused and animals. So there's these segmented audiences, and that really helps target our fundraising activities and making that connection and making that meaningful ask.
Thanks very much, Garner.
I know there's also, and we're hoping to do this, you can use environics that to help really look at who the people are in your the demographics of the people in your neighborhood, what's their income level, what's their interest, do they like going to parks? So there's really lots of ways that that can be done as well through environics.
Thank you very much. So we'll take another couple questions, I believe. Maybe we'll do two more. This next question, I believe, is addressed to Terri. Just speaking to friends groups, how are the finances set up for these groups? Are they separate or under the foundation authority? Do they need approvals for expenses?
All good questions. Yeah, so the Friends of groups work as a subcommittee of the foundation. So administratively, financially, everything is managed by the foundation staff, for example. So with the Friends of Island Lake, in addition to the park staff that are at the table, there would also be a foundation staff member at the table supporting them. When it comes to expenses, it's typically a process where we do have a terms of reference for the group that outlines, voting procedures, election procedures, decision-making authority. Ultimately, everything lands on my desk. It's not ideal, it's not the most efficient, but it actually keeps things on the straight and narrow. So any expenditures that the Friends would have, any requests that they would have, would come to me. Ultimately, financial decision making and allocations are the foundation board of directors. So if it's anything that's significant, it would need their approval. So I would be the conduit in which that flows through.
Thanks very much, Terri. So we will take one more question. I believe this final question is likely for Garner to start. Someone has asked, I know Conservation Halton held a gala fundraising event this year. Can you speak to the success of this with all of the COVID protocols in place?
Yeah. So happy to. And I was going to work this into the presentation, and I must have skipped it, but we did hold a gala this year. It was our Mountsburg Sugar Bush experience. We changed the name of it because it definitely was not a typical gala. And March, April, May, when stuff was very uncertain, my immediate reaction to our gala that was planned was to cancel it, and I'm sure most galas were canceled. But the team really wanted to find an innovative solution to keep that on the calendar, to make it happen, and the team was very confident that we could do it. So we did go ahead, and we had all kinds of safety protocol in place. We worked directly with public health every step of the way, and it was a rocky path, because between making that decision in June or midsummer, and our event was in October, it was probably late summer by the time we made the call to go ahead. Between that period, stuff changed 100 times, and it was a challenging road up and down, but each step of the way the staff stepped up and met the challenges and ensured that we adjusted, we included the safety protocol, and the event did turn out to be quite a really great success for us. We actually raised significantly more than we had in previous years, it was mainly due to our sponsorship. So we had really good corporate relationships to rely on there. Not as many guests were coming out as, people are nervous, were very nervous getting out of their homes, but our corporate partners and our board members all came out. People kept their distance. They wore their masks. We had all kinds of protocol throughout the event from start to finish with our registration system, with all of our reduced touch points and spacing. And we did it outdoors, obviously, so we could have as much space as possible. And it worked really well. And now we're positioned to do that again. Hopefully next year. We gave it a good trial run and it was successful for us. So just another good example of staff innovation, because if that was up to me entirely, I would have been way too cautious and said, shut it down. But I'm so glad we didn't. So.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. There was an end of this question did ask if Lake Simcoe hosted a fundraising event this year. Cheryl, was that something you wanted to speak to? Was that?
Our conservation dinner? No, I mentioned that in my presentation that we've held it for 32 years and we had it originally for June 10th. Then we tried to reschedule it for mid-September and the board decided just to outright cancel it. And then we're just planning on doing it again next year. So yeah, we were lucky, as I mentioned. We did have most of our sponsors already on board. So we had tables, tickets, sponsors already on board, and about $120,000 worth of sponsors quickly donated to, converted to a donation, which was fantastic. We had a few that wanted a refund. We had to give them a choice. And we had a good chunk of change that have already booked for next year. So we didn't hold it, but some good things came out of it for sure.
That's great. Okay, so that will be the last question that we do take today. Please remember that any remaining questions will be answered in a follow-up email that participants will receive, along with a short survey after this webinar is sent out. All the live stream will be sent out to all of our registrants, regardless if you registered. You can share the video to watch the webinar. I would like to acknowledge our committee members for all their hard work in putting this together. My co-chair, Dave Orr, John Messman from South Nation, Jan Willem LeRoux from the Grand, Ryan Mackett up north at Lakehead region, Dan Andrews from Lake Simcoe, Brenna Bartley from Halton, Liam Fletcher from Hamilton, Brandon Good from Long Point, and Nikisha Mohammed from Conservation Ontario. Also, we want to thank the audience for giving us your time today. Please remember to join us for our final webinar. It'll be next Wednesday on December 2nd. We have a virtual site tour of Lakehead region, Essex region, and North Bay, Mattawa. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And on behalf of the committee, we want to thank our presenters again for joining us today, and thank you all, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.